Uh, Welcome to another one of my 5 video games I would like to see return in the future. Now this one is going to be a PlayStation specific one. I grew up playing a lot of PlayStation games, so I have a little more history with the PlayStation than any other console, except for maybe Nintendo. And yeah, I don't see anybody around here. And so let's get it started. This is for multi-generational PlayStation games. And the first one I'm going to start with is Dino Crisis. Now, even though there was a Dino Crisis game released on the Xbox, that was the very last iteration of the series. But I'm including it into the PlayStation list mainly because the first 3 games were released on PlayStation, and that's really the console that everybody knows it on compared to anything else, especially since the final game in the series was just complete garbage. It actually killed the franchise. I mean, dinosaurs in space is not really an area people are willing to go. Now the game franchise itself is heavily influenced by both Resident Evil, since the game was created by the same guy that created that directed the very first Resident Evil game, so it has a very Resident Evil vibe to it. And it's also heavily influenced by the Jurassic Park movies. And the games take place on an island run by dinosaurs, where obviously experiences have been taking place. And the game series lasted from 1999 all the way till 2003, so almost one game a year if you put it that way. And then after the last one came out, nobody really bought it, and it just kind of died. And I think it would be amazing to see a new iteration of a Resident Evil inspired dinosaur game, where instead of zombies you're going after dinosaurs. Now, let's see. Okay, the second game on my list is Destruction Derby. Now, once again, most of the games appeared only on PlayStation, but the first one did also appear on Nintendo 64, I believe. But they were mainly PlayStation games, and in that series there were 4 main games, going from 1995 all the way to 2004. And there were 4 games made. It was a demolition derby racing game where there were different modes. Like, there was just pure straight up demolition derby. There was wreck racing, where you raced and vehicles, and then there was just pure racing, where the damage was more of a consequence of running into each other. And this game also died a slow, excruciating death. The first 2 games were very well made, and a lot of people bought them, and then the last 2 kind of just fizzled out and weren't received well at all. And the only thing about bringing this game series back is there have been a lot of spiritual successors to the game, so I don't know how viable it would be, especially with games like Wreckfest and stuff like that being out. I don't know how viable a new iteration of that game would be, but I'm full. But I would still like to see it. I know. Alright. Number 3 on the list is one game that's very near and dear to my heart, is Twisted Metal. I spent way too much time of my childhood playing that game series. Now, there have been 10 iterations of Twisted Metal made. It was made originally by David Jaffe, who is also known for making the original God of War games and Calling All Cars. Like, he's been around. He knows what he's doing. And I believe this was actually like the one game that launched his career. Now, it is definitely It's a vehicle combat game. It definitely inspired other games like Vigilante 8 and any game that you can think of where it's cars with guns blowing each other up, where that's the main premise of the game. And apparently it was also the influence for the racing game that appears in the death racing game that appears in Wreck-It Ralph. Oh no, Ralph Breaks the Internet, which I think is pretty cool. There were, let's see, 10 games made in the series between the years of 95 and 2012. The game in 2012 was an online-only game, and I actually remember playing quite a bit of that. And there was a lot of controversy with that, especially with how bad the PlayStation servers were when it came to that game, and there was a lot of blame going back and forth between David Jaffe and well, PlayStation themselves. Oh, come on. I enjoyed it for what it was, but the servers were definitely not ready for that game. And I would like to see it come back as an online battle royale, actually. That'd be very interesting since that's kind of what the last one was going for. And Twisted Metal come back, especially with the PlayStation 5 and what the rumor of its capabilities. I think a new Twisted Metal would be amazing on that. Alright, so game number 4 on the list is Bloody Roar. If you've never heard of Bloody Roar, it is a fighting game in the same vein as Tekken. Oh crap. I'm dead. Oh well. It's in the same vein as Tekken and other 3D fighting games of the era. The characters were well, some of them were anthropomorphic animals, and some of them were just humans with animal traits. It was very interesting. I really enjoyed the series. There were 4 main games and 1 spin-off between the years of 97 and 2003. And it's another one of those games that just kind of fizzled out towards the end. And the last game is a game I'm surprised they haven't made any of in a long time, and that would be Ape Escape. Now, Ape Escape was the very first PlayStation game that required a DualShock. The developers made when they first heard of the new controller, their first thought was, "This is an interesting controller. Let's make a game around it." And so by the time the original DualShock came out, Ape Escape was the very first game to require it, 100%. And it was a 3D platforming game, kind of in the same vein as Super Mario 64. In fact, it was compared to Mario 64 a lot. And now this game had a lot. They had a lot of games in this series. They had 4 main games, 5 spin-offs, and 4 different party games. I believe the last game came out in 2005, somewhere around 2010. Sorry. And then the last appearance of the character from Ape Escape, the main character, was all the way in PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, which is a game I'm going to cover when I do my PlayStation 3 only games. So yeah, those are the casualties of PlayStation games of the past that personally I would like to see come back in the future. And if you have any other games you would like to see that were PlayStation exclusives, please leave them in the comments below, and I will see you next time. See ya!